Hello, I'm Scott, and got a little bit of music going in the background. Hope that doesn't bother you at all. Turn that down a little bit, or up, who cares. But what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna show you how to use the Top-O-Matic Injector for rolling your own cigarettes. Really, it's an injection process, which involves taking these empty tubes and injecting them with your favorite tobacco. Now, I'm also going to explain something very cool you can do with the tobacco, which I've discovered has just come to fruition today, and I'm very excited about it. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to set this off to the side and explain something very important to you. When you take your tobacco, what I do is I take off the lid, and I set some tobacco off to the side on the lid. Now, what this does is you need to give it maybe a minute or so to dry out. If you don't let it dry out, especially with the special technique I'm going to explain to you today, it'll make these cigarettes very hard to inject. It'll make your cigarettes very hard to smoke. Okay, so I'm just going to pick this apart a little bit. It helps aerate it. If I had a toothpick, I'd be poking holes in it just to help aerate the tobacco and let it dry out. And in reality, I don't need this much. I'm only doing one cigarette for this video because I already have a full little ghetto jury-rigged case full, just one empty cigarette because I just smoked it. I was very excited, so I'm going to show you this shit. Anyway, what I've done is I've taken 2 slices of apples, Granny Smith, because that's what I prefer, and I've put them in here and let it sit for 24 hours. I'm going to let it sit for another 24 hours before I remove them because that's what a friend recommended to me. Now, I'm going to make sure these are nice and buried in there, and what this does is it will help keep your tobacco fresh, because not everybody always rolls an entire carton at a time. Nobody needs to smoke that much, and really it just makes your cigarettes just lets your cigarettes go stale. So I'm going to set that off to the side, and what this will do, the apples themselves act like a humidifier, because when the cap is on, it creates its own atmosphere inside the can. So with that, the tobacco being drier than the apples will it'll try to create an equilibrium, which means that the apples will dry out a little bit and the tobacco will moisten, which makes the tobacco last longer. So it won't go stale, because this is not necessarily an airtight system, but it's good enough for this purpose. Also, what I've noticed very well is it's changed the smell of the tobacco, and I can now smell the apples in the tobacco. And after I just came in from smoking one, you do taste a little bit of the apple in the tobacco. That's why I'm going to let it sit for another 24 hours before I take them out, because I don't want it getting too moist. And this is drying up nicely, but you don't want it to get too moist because it will clog your injector, and it will also make the cigarettes very, very, very hard to smoke. Okay, now what we're going to do now is, since I have this set off to the side, it's all dried up, I made a little bit of a mess, it's going to happen. Now, you don't want to set this on top of anything except the tabletop or anything that's anchored to the tabletop. You don't want to set paper down, because one thing I'll notice if you set paper down, when you go to crank it, it will slide all over the place, and that's very bad. This has rubber base, it won't move. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to see if I can finagle this a little bit better. Okay. What we have here is this system right here, and you'll see that this piece right here, when I move the arm into this position, this tamper will come in and pack the tobacco. It will also slice off anything that's extra, and that injects the cigarette. But this is the handy bit, this is the important bit, is you'll see that that bit moves ever so slightly. What that will do is when you put on your tube, right now, I can move it. When it's in this position, it's anchored on there. It's not going to move unless I really, really pull on it, and that's the point. Now, I'm going to set that right there. What I'm going to do is, this tobacco's still a little moist, but that's okay. But you want to let it dry out. I've let it sit for a good couple minutes now. And what you want to do is you want to pull some out and set it into the thing, You don't want to pack it too tight or your cigarette will be impossible to smoke. What you want to do is you want to take it and you want to push it into this corner. Now I have this version set to regular's length or king's. Now what you can do is you can actually unscrew this little screw right here and actually remove this bit, which will lengthen the chamber and allow you to pack 100s. Like I said, I smoke regular length. I don't need that much cigarette. Now you don't want to pack this too tightly. Like I feel like I packed that a little too tightly. You want to pack it straight down and in the corners. Straight down. Get the other corner. And you just want to very, very loosely pack this, because when that because you don't want to pack it to the density of your normal cigarette, because when this tamper comes in, this slot is wider than a cigarette. So when that tamper comes in, it'll actually pack it down, and especially with it being moist like this, it will hold that shape. So another thing I suggest is, even after you pack it, letting the cigarette sit out for maybe 20 minutes, and it will allow the cigarette itself, the tobacco inside the cigarette, to dry out and expand to fill the space. Now when you do it like this with this moist tobacco, it's going to see that tamper coming in, and it'll lock in like that. And now this isn't going to go anywhere. Now you want to hold on to this handle. That blocks the video, so I'm not going to. And you want to very carefully, now with this moist tobacco, it's very difficult. So you just want to ease it in, and it will actually push that tube out a little bit. Now what I do is when that happens, I'll actually take this and I will push it down a little bit, because you'll feel it slide a little bit more, and it gets it all the way down to the filter. Now with this wet tobacco, one thing I noticed is one time it pulled out half the cigarette because the tobacco is very, very finely packed. So what I do is I'll release it and let it snap back so it removes the injector very quickly. And now there should still be some in this chamber right here. So I grab this very firmly and just pull it out. Now there will be a little bit of space left there, and this one actually came to the edge, so it doesn't pack it all the way to the edge, but you can see we have a perfectly packed cigarette, except for the end. That's annoying, but that happens sometimes with this, and you just want to pack it down. And it all depends on how picky you are about your cigarettes. I'm sure I've somehow found a way to do it almost every time right. It just happened that this time I was doing this video, I've already committed 8 minutes to it. I don't want to do it again. Just pack it down, and see, now that is just fine. That is perfect, perfectly packed. And you see we have some space here, about that much space at the end. That's okay. It's not going to hurt your cigarette, make your cigarette a little bit shorter, but should be okay. Now I'm going to put that in my case. I'm going to let it dry out with the others, and this tobacco is just going to go back in the case. Like I said, I would not let it sit for about 24 hours, no longer than 48 hours, because you do not want those apples to over moisten your tobacco, and you definitely do not want them to go bad, because that will ruin your tobacco. So I'm going to put that back on there, nice snug fit. That's that. And there you have it. Cigarettes injected with the Top-O-Matic. It's a very reliable machine. I have a review on here for a very shit machine, which is a generic 3 cigarette slide injector. Don't ever fuck with that shit. Get the Top-O-Matic.